Hello friends, or welcome back to my channel, or welcome if you're new here. I'm back today with another oil painting tutorial for you. Everything that you're going to need for this video will be in the description, probably with a link next to it to the exact item or something similar, so let's just get straight into it. The colours that you're going to need today are titanium white. This is quite a bright white. It's probably the most common white, so you can obviously use any other sort of white that you have, but this is the one I like. I've got lamp black as well, which is quite a cool tone of black. I've got Payne's grey, which is also quite a cool grey. Indigo blue, which is a dark and kind of dull blue. And then I've also got phthalo blue, which is quite a bright, vibrant blue. Viridian hue, which is a pretty bright green. And yellow ochre. The medium that I like to use is refined linseed oil. I've just got this one by Winsor & Newton. It helps to thin out your paints and also slow the drying time, but you can use whatever medium you have on hand, if you even have one. And I've also got a glass palette to mix my colours on. This is just an old photo frame, like the glass from a photo frame, but you can just mix your colours on whatever you have at hand. And I've got a pot for my linseed oil. I've got some different brushes which I'll go through with you in a second, but it's just important to have some blending brushes, some medium-sized brushes and a fine detail brush. So first of all, I've got this oval mop brush by De La Rowney in their graduate series. It's the size 3/4 of an inch, and then I've also got the same brush from the same series in 1/2 an inch. I've also got this fine detail brush by Pro Art Renaissance England, and it's just a fine detail brush, but obviously you don't need to have the same one, just use any thin brush for the details. Then I've got this NYX Pro brush in the size number 2, and I've also got it in the size number 7. I've also got a palette knife to mix my colours with, but this isn't really essential, it's just a personal preference. You can feel free to mix your colours using another paintbrush. And I've got this canvas by Loxley. It's in the size 8 by 10 inches and it's just an oval cotton canvas. I thought that I'd use the same canvas as the actual original painting that I'm recreating today, but obviously you can just use a regular square or rectangle canvas, just whatever you have at home. So I'm starting by just putting all my colours onto the palette first, starting with titanium white, Payne's grey, indigo blue, phthalo blue, viridian hue, and then lamp black at the end. First of all, I'm taking some Payne's grey and mixing a bit of lamp black. As you'll see, I kind of make it up a little bit as I go along, so I don't really have a proper mixture or a ratio that I can give you really. It's kind of just watching what I'm doing, just because I'm trying to mix it and match it to the reference photo. I added a bit of phthalo blue there just to make it a bit of a cooler grey, adding some more black to make it slightly darker. This colour is going to be used for the sky. It's one of the medium greys that we'll be using. I'm also going to use it for the birds. Oh, and here I'm just adding some more indigo blue. The second colour is going to be the darker grey for the sky that we'll be using. And again, I'm pretty much just using the same colours as I've just used. The reason that I like to mix the medium colour first is because sometimes when you're mixing a dark colour, it's kind of hard to see exactly how it's turning out. So I like to kind of mess around with the ratios in the first colour that I mix, and then I feel better about mixing the darker colours. And there I just took some of the grey that we've just mixed and I'm mixing it with white to make the lightest colour for the sky. So now we're on to mixing the colours for the sea. So I've just taken some phthalo blue, some indigo blue and some viridian hue, and I'm going to mix these all together. Oh, taking a bit of Payne's grey, forgot about that. Mixing it all together. And then taking some of that colour, mixing it with some titanium white to make a medium shade, and then mixing some more viridian hue with that colour and some titanium white to make kind of like the colour of the highlights of the top of the waves, as you'll see as we go along with the painting process. Another thing that I actually do is I do mix on my palette a little bit, but I'll keep bringing my palette up to the camera so you can see exactly what I'm doing. And I thought I'd just show you a bit of my setup. So I've got my reference photo on my laptop. It's just the painting Flying Free number 2. I didn't really use a proper reference for this actual painting, so I'm just using the painting as my reference. Then I've got my palette right in front of me and my easel with the canvas on. Oh, also I do have a pot of linseed oil, and I just dip my brush into the linseed oil before I dip it into any paints. So starting off by that medium grey colour that we mixed, and yeah, as you'll see here, I'm dipping my brush into the linseed oil, getting a little bit on my brush, not too much, and then dipping it into the paint. So we're going to start by adding some of the darker sections of the sky and just outlining some of the storm clouds. It doesn't have to be perfect because we're going to blend most of the sky out because it's not really the focus of the whole piece. And then here we're taking that darker grey, the darkest shade that we just mixed. I'm taking some of that medium grey and I'm going to be outlining some of the bottom clouds. We're also using that as sort of a transition shade between the clouds and the lightest grey, which is going to be filling in the gaps in between, as you'll see here. So this is what I mean about mixing on my palette. I've just taken a bit of titanium white and I'm mixing it with the light grey that we've just mixed at the beginning. Sometimes as I go along with the painting I realise I haven't actually mixed all the colours that I need to, so I'll just mix on the palette because I find it a lot easier than thinking it all through at the beginning. Some people do prefer to mix every single shade at the beginning, and that's okay, but I'm just showing you exactly how I do it personally. Here I've also taken some of that darker grey and I've mixed it with the other medium light grey. And I'm just using that to fill in some of the clouds. So here we're taking the 3/4 of an inch oval mop brush and we're just very lightly blending the darker areas first. So you'll see that I keep moving the brush away from the camera, and it's because I'm wiping it on a kitchen towel just in between areas that I'm blending. This stops like the dark from getting into the light, because all we really want to do is just sort of blend out the edges. We don't exactly want to mix all the colours together. So here I'm just using a light shade of blue to add the horizon line, and then I'm going to be adding a slightly darker shade below just to kind of block in the background. This is just so that I know where I want the top of the waves in the foreground to end. I'm not really too sure why I do it in this order, it's just the order that I find myself painting in every time I paint a scene like this. Now I'm using the 1/2 inch blending brush by Dale Rowney, and I'm just blending the horizon into the sky. Now we're just taking the medium turquoise shade and we're going to use it to map out the larger waves in the foreground. They don't have to be perfect. I can't just follow a really rough shape because I know with oil paints you can move them around and make it a bit more perfect in a minute. Then I'm using the light turquoise shade and I'm filling in the top of the waves just because these are the parts that are going to be receiving the most light, they're going to be most see-through, so we want this to be the lightest part of the wave and then the bottom to be the darkest. So now for the bottom of the waves we're taking the dark blue shade. Yeah, for now we're just roughly blocking in colours, so nothing has to be perfect, nothing has to be blended. Then we're taking a slightly lighter shade of blue, but still quite dark, and we're just going to be placing that around the dark shade that we've just put down. Then we're taking a bit of the blue mixed with turquoise and we're just going to be filling in some more of these areas. This is kind of just going to be a transition between the top of the waves and the dark blues that we've just laid on. And then I'm taking that 1/2 inch brush again and blending it all out very lightly. So now we're on to painting the background waves. The waves closest to us want to be larger, and then as they get further away into the distance you want to make them a lot smaller. I didn't manage to film all of this just because, well, I did film it, but for some reason my lighting just kept flashing bright and dark. It didn't really look very good and it probably would have just given you a headache, so I kind of just cropped it out, but you get the idea. And then we're just taking titanium white and we're adding some details to the waves. We're just adding some foam, so with this part you kind of want to follow a rough shape of the sea. You want to kind of make them look like they're flowing. Okay, so now we're on to outlining the shape of the seagull just using titanium white. So the only colours that I use to do this are the grey colour that I'm showing you right now on our palette, which we've already mixed, titanium white on its own and lamp black on its own. It's kind of hard for me to show or explain exactly how I do the seagull. I would recommend looking at some references of seagulls, especially on a source such as Shutterstock or a free image website where you can just get like a license, or you can just obviously use the photos for free if you're just practicing painting. This will probably help you more with your technique than just watching me do it, especially since in a minute I do blend out one of the wings and restart it. And then here I'm just taking yellow ochre straight from the paint tube. Just because it's such a tiny bit, you don't really need to squeeze any out onto your palette, and just adding it as the beak. And here's your finished product. This is flying free too. And yeah, I hope that you found this useful. Let me know in the comments if you're trying this for yourself. You could probably try this with acrylic as well, but obviously it would just feel a bit different than oil paints. But yeah, I really appreciate you sticking it out till the end, and thank you so much. I'll see you in the next one. Bye!